Hello, this is Joe Polish, president of Piranha Marketing and founder of the Genius Network interview series, and you're about to hear one of my Genius Network interviews, and I just want to thank you for taking the time to listen to this, and I hope you find it very useful. If you want to find out more information about some of the interviews and resources that can help you in your business, you can go to www.joepolish.com. And we have a Joe Polish Recommends section with all kinds of resources and vendors and services and products that we recommend that can help you in your business. And also for more useful interviews and a whole list of other people that I've interviewed, you can go to www.geniusnetwork.com. Thanks and enjoy the interview.
Hello, this is Joe Polish, president of Piranha Marketing and founder of the Genius Network interview series. And today I have got a wonderful entrepreneurial woman, friend, funny person, great life coach, all the above, a woman by the name of Marie Forleo. Can you hear me okay, Marie?
Yep, hear you great.
You're in New York City.
I am.
And I'm in Tempe, Arizona, so we're across the country from each other. However, because of technology, we're able to talk. You're going to speak at my boot camp this year, which I'm really, really, really looking forward to. And my listeners, many may have met you because you were at last year's boot camp, but you did not have an opportunity other than for just a few minutes when I dragged you up on stage to say a few words. They don't really know who you are, but the people that did meet you privately said really wonderful things about you, which is all well-deserved. So what I'm going to do before we get into this questions and stuff that I will ask you is this. I'm going to read your bio, and if there's anything I leave out, please fill in the blanks. So here we go. Okay. Marie Forleo is living her rock star life. She's an executive coach, Nike master trainer, and elite athlete, associate director of group fitness for Crunch International, and author of Make Every Man Want You or Make Yours Want You More, How to Be So Damn Irresistible That You Barely Keep From Dating Yourself. I really like that title, by the way, Marie.
Thank you.
As a dancer, choreographer, and fitness expert, she has worked with MTV, VH1, Self Magazine, Preventative Magazine, and Women's Health, as well as presents training and classes around the world. She's appeared in countless fitness videos, including the best-selling Crunch Cardio Dance Blast and soon-to-be-released Dance Yourself Thin and Dance Off the Inches. Most recently, she choreographed and performed in the new Nike Foot Locker fitness dance commercial airing this fall. Her latest project, Muscle Up Your Mojo, is the first of its kind life coaching fitness fusion program launching at Crunch, New York City this fall also. As the creator of this new mind-body fitness trend, her Mojo program has already been mentioned on Forbes.com and CNN.com. After graduating as valedictorian of Seton Hall University with a bachelor's degree in business finance, she worked as trading assistant on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange and for several years at Condé Nast Publications before launching her career in coaching, dance, and fitness. And you can learn everything you'd want to know and more at marieforleo.com, spelled MarieForleo.com. Marie, what else did I leave out? What should the listeners know about you that I was not able to cover in this bio?
I mean, that's about it, besides the fact that I live in New York and I have such a great life. I live with my partner, Josh, and he has a 12-year-old son who's essentially my stepson. So I have a very full family life and very full professional life. It's awesome.
Yes, you do. And you know what? Let me mention one thing before I go into the main questions I want to ask you. When I first asked you to do a Genius Network interview with me, you said that you feel so lucky to have such a full and interesting life, but you have no idea what you would want to say or talk about in order for my listeners to get the most value out of hearing from you, because there's so many things that you could talk about. Well, I do have a ton of stuff that I would like to discuss with you during this interview for my listeners, but I want to first ask you that statement that you said to me. Why do you feel you are so lucky and have such a full and interesting life?
Well, I'll tell you, it's a little bit about the luck. For me, I'm doing everything that I love. And about, 6 or 7 years ago, when I just started getting into the world of dance and fitness and I just started life coaching, everything felt so disconnected. And then I had such a strong idea in my head that I should choose one thing, and that if I was really focused and, really smart and a really good entrepreneur, that I would pick one area and just dig really, really deep. And that's what I was supposed to do. And I just remember for years torturing myself and writing in journals and crying. And I'm Catholic, so I prayed to God, help me find my one path. And it was really I really tortured myself for years. And of course anyone else who I was around, because I would talk to them about it. But, about 4 or 5 years ago, I really started just being gentle with myself and realizing that that's not me. I can't follow that prescriptions, I know the book Good to Great is amazing, but there's something in that mentality of like choosing one thing and sticking with it and going really deep that just never felt right for me personally. So I felt like I was a square peg trying to fit myself into a round hole, and it wasn't until I stopped resisting who I was and just went for everything that I was passionate about that things really started to come together. And for me, it's made all the difference in the world to not listen to all of the quote-unquote prescriptions that are out there for how to be successful. So I
hear you. And I really, the purpose of this interview is I want to hear your perspective because I believe you have a very unique perspective on life in general, on business, on projects, on priorities, on passion, on a whole variety of things. And, when you say life coach, I mean, it's funny because the coaching business, the word coaching has, I do coaching at Piranha Marketing, and, ours is predominantly business and marketing coaching. And, there's a lot of people that call themselves coaches out there, and I think a lot of the life coaching industry is filled with so many fruitcakes and people that, really, wanted to be therapists, but they never did the schooling and just a lot of fluff.
Yeah.
And you are the only life coach that I have listed on JoePolishRecommends.com, and that for any one-on-one coaching that I would ever refer anyone to as of this point, because I just know how awesome you are, and I just, I know your integrity and I know your intelligence level, and you're realistic in terms of getting things done. And so what got you into that? And then I'm going to go into just some more structured questions that I have laid out for you.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that because when I started out at undergrad, I started out as a psych major. Before I went into finance and business, I started out as a psych major because I was always really interested in human potential and what is possible for humans to create and for them to do. But when I stepped foot into that first psychology class, it was like I got hit by a ton of bricks. It was, open up the book, let's talk about why you're broken and what happened in your past and yada, 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 with all this analytical stuff. And I got so turned off. Literally, after the first class, I changed majors. And I knew I was also passionate about business, about creating businesses. So I scooted right over to finance, and that's the degree I graduated with. But, after a couple years just, doing stuff on Wall Street and doing things with magazine publishing, trying to find what was going to be a great expression for me into the world, this whole life coaching profession started to pop up. And it was in the late 90s, mid to late 90s, when it was just kind of springing up as a catch term. And I did some research, and what I found felt like it was really in line with what my original passion was about human potential. It was about supporting people into their full potential and seeing if you can do things and use the technology of coaching, the best from sports and the best from business, to really support people into having something else that's possible, not living a mediocre life and really going for what they want. And that turned me on, to be quite honest. I thought it was a great fit for me. It was a great fit for what I was interested in. And it scared me a little bit because I was only 22, 23 at the time. So I had all these thoughts like, who the hell's going to listen to me? You know what I mean? All these things about who am I to tell people or help advise people at this young age. But technology was a great asset for me because on the web, you take a good picture and it's a professional picture. No one can really tell how old you are unless you're going to give it up. So I was working with clients maybe double my age, and they had no idea I was 22, 23, 24, which was awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it was really fun.
It's like Cameron Johnson, our friend. You met Cameron, and he, he's 21 years old right now, and when he was ready to his first business, he was 12 years old when he sold $50,000 worth of Beanie Babies on the internet, and he said if it wasn't for email, he never would have been able to conduct business because people he was emailing had no idea that they were, dealing with a 12-year-old, which I think is funny.
It was the same kind of thing, but it was something that I was passionate about and something that I was like, wow, this is really an emerging field. And even though people were kind of saying, oh, it's a trend, or oh, these are quacks, or it had a very kind of new agey sense to it in the beginning, there was something intuitively that I knew that this skill set, for whatever reason, whether I was actually going to be a life coach or just have that skill set in my arsenal of tools, I knew I needed to do it.
Well, and let me, say what I just said in the proper context. I mean, I am all for anyone that is, for one, wanting to improve themselves, looking for different capabilities, looking for structures that will work for them. And so, I have a love-hate relationship with the self-help industry and with therapy and everything in general. I mean, I've participated in tons of it on many different levels, and, some life coaching, some therapy, some books, all they do is get you mired in your past and rehash, things from the past, and there's others that truly do give you direction and confidence and capabilities, as we say. And I would never endorse or recommend or put anyone out to my client base and to my listeners that I didn't feel had really legitimate, valuable knowledge and wisdom to share, and I absolutely put you in that category. So I'm happy to talk about all the things that you do. And so, heck, let's just get right into it, because I think I want to ask you some questions, and the listeners can judge for themselves if any of this is applicable to their lives. And I will say that unless you're driving, I'd recommend that you have a notepad next to you, because I know Marie's going to say some really cool stuff that you'll probably want to keep notes of. So, you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Well, I want to talk to you about comparison. I've heard you say that comparing yourself to others is a killer, and I want you to talk about that a little, about just the whole subject of comparison.
Well, comparison is a killer, and it's one of those things that we naturally do as humans. Like, you can look at someone else's business, or, you can read a magazine or an article about someone and go like, wow, they really seem like they have it all together. Or, you get lost in this thought loop of comparing yourself to someone else, whether it's about their family, about their business, about how much money they make, about how they look. And for me, it's been such a gift to catch myself when I go there. And I'll tell you why. It's a huge time waster. It kills your productivity, and it kills your well-being. Because if you take a look and tell the truth, most of the time when you're comparing yourself, you come up short. Of course, there's times when you're going to meet that poor soul or someone who, is really having a rough time, and you can say, wow, I'm doing great compared to them. But it's always putting you either in a position of being above someone or below someone. It's not like you're just taking a look at noticing at what someone else is doing and being able to glean some inspiration off them or being able to support them in some way. There's always some kind of hierarchy. And from my experience, that just doesn't support your productivity or support your well-being. Really simply, it's like this. No two things can occupy the same space at the same time. So you're either comparing yourself to someone else or you're engaged in your life.
Yeah, and I mean, I think, certainly I've spent many years of my life, many times comparing myself personally, business-wise, to other people in other situations. Probably like, I don't know how many years ago it was, there was a friend of mine, his mother actually gave me a sheet called 15 Ways to be Miserable, and I actually used to distribute it. I mean, you've actually intrigued my desire to go and find that in a file somewhere. And one of the ways was compare yourself to others, when she had the list of 15 ways to be miserable. And, I mean, are there any times when comparison in your mind is useful or productive?
Yeah, there is. This is one of the things that I write about in the book when it comes to, like, dating and relationships, but it's absolutely applicable to every area of your life. I hate rules, and I hate to say that comparison is a killer always, because, you can use some business facts and figures to take a look at comparing how you did this week to last week, or, when you take a look at marketing tools, to take a look at what's working and what's not. So in that way, it can be a really useful tool. But what I'm talking about is that automatic, robotic, habitual sense of comparing yourself to people around you. And if you take a look and you tell the truth, again, you're going to notice that most of the time you don't walk away feeling well in yourself.
You feel let down.
Yes, and you feel like you let yourself down, like you're not good enough, like there's other things that you should or could be doing that would make your life better. And in reality, that's simply not true. You're one of 6.5, approximately, billion people on the planet, and there's a reason for you. And not to get too, like, airy-fairy, but really, each of us is born inherently with a set of gifts, with a set of natural abilities, with things that we're here to express out into the world. And if you get lost in comparing yourself to others, it's a waste. You're wasting your gifts. You're stealing from other people because you're here for a reason. And you can either waste your time and waste your life away comparing yourself to others, which is irrelevant, or you can get off your ass and make a difference. And
right.
When I say make a difference, I mean, whatever your business is or whatever your life is about. And again, it doesn't even relate to business, but, those 5 minutes that you spent beating yourself up in your head about how you're not as successful as the next guy, you can be spending with your husband or your wife, or you can just be enjoying the fact that you have a life right now, because it goes by pretty quick. So
True.
Yeah, on a very simple level, it's just a way to maintain your well-being and to stay engaged in your life rather than talking to yourself about how you're doing it wrong.
So what suggestions would you have for the listeners to kind of break that habit if they do have it, which I know a lot of people do? Certainly, even myself, of course, on varying levels. I certainly do a heck of a lot less of it than I used to, although I still once in a while find myself using comparisons in negative ways.
Yeah, and I do too. I mean, it's, for me, I always tell people living like an engaged and in-the-moment lifestyle, it's not something that you just do and you learn and then it's over. It's a constant looking, and the key to it is awareness. And awareness, we'll define that as a judgment-free noticing of something. Like, you notice you're doing it, you observe that you're doing it, and it's like, I did that again. And then you just simply redirect your attention to what's really happening. So say you're reading an article. If you notice that you're going down into the comparison mode, you can actually you'll feel it. Like, you'll feel your well-being start going, oh, my God, I'm not good enough, I'm not young enough, I'm not successful enough. Leave it alone, man. Just chuck the article. Go handle that email, or go wash the dishes, or, you know what I mean? Whatever is around in your environment that needs your attention and needs to be handled, just shift your focus into what's real rather than engaging in that negative thought loop that's in your head.
A great suggestion. So, yeah, when you notice it, just disengage.
Just disengage, and don't beat on yourself for doing it, though, because it's going to happen. I know one of the things that happened early for me, and I know other business owners do this, and you could probably attest to it. You learn about someone that you think is cool, or they might be in the same field as you, and you can go on their website, or you can go read articles about them.
Right.
Have you ever done that?
Oh, yeah.
And then you get lost, and there's like an hour went by, and you're like, oh, my God, and you feel like crap. You've learned everything about them, and you've maybe read all this stuff, and oh, my God, they're so great, and then you're like, oh, I really got to get my act together. But that whole hour wasn't being spent really engaging in your business or taking a look to see what your life needs. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I always use the barometer of feeling, actually feeling how you feel. If you're watching a TV show, you're reading a magazine, some trade magazines are awful. You got to just stay away from them. But really pay attention to how you feel after engaging with something or someone. And if it starts to not feel good and you feel yourself going down, you just got to shift out of it.
Let me bring up this subject. I mean, from an outsider's perspective, my own, of course, I see you doing a heck of a lot of stuff. I mean, what was really funny, one of the little things that I told you about this a couple months ago, I was walking in Target and in the DVD section, and lo and behold, there's a video of you, the dance video that, we should probably bring this up during this interview, that I did indeed. I don't know how long ago this was in New York. Me and Lisa Wagner went to your dance class.
Yeah.
And, I sweated my butt off, and I felt like a complete idiot the whole time, but I did it, and I think I kind of hung in there pretty well, and so did Lisa, and that was absolutely hysterical, but that's one of the things where that completely goes against something that I would typically want to do, but I'm an adventurous type of guy. And so you ended up creating this dance video, one of many I'm sure that'll probably exist here in the next 5 years. And I'm walking through Target, and there you are. And here's Marie doing all kinds of stuff. You got your book out, how to make every man want you or make yours want you more. And again, I love the second part of this, how to be so damn irresistible that you barely keep from dating yourself. Do you think that would work for me?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, anyway, you're doing all of this stuff, and you also, on every level that I can tell, and I think I know you well enough to know who's, a legitimate, experiencer of joy versus who just pretends. I mean, you really, really, on all levels seem to enjoy yourself immensely, and you do what you're passionate about in spite of the fact that, much of what you've done, including your fitness and your dance stuff, you had literally no formal training in. It's as if you just, do what you like doing and you've made it happen. You've had success with it. So I'd like you to talk about that.
Yeah, it goes back to that story. I think every one of us, you have a story upstairs in your head that you listen to about your limitations and what you can and can't do. And I know for me, I was 26 and I really wanted to dance. I used to dance across the floor, my mom's kitchen on the linoleum. I used to listen to Thriller and, do all kinds of fun Michael Jackson moves, and she would laugh at me. But I never had any formal dance training as a kid. It just, I was really into visual arts, so I was like painting and drawing all the time and, kind of did cheerleading and stuff, but never did any dance training. So when I was taking a look at my life, and I was 26, I had just broken off an engagement that wasn't working. That was actually a huge shift for me because I had appeared like I was having the perfect life at that moment. I had a great guy, had a big ring on my finger. We were going to get married. And the truth of the matter is that I really knew that wasn't the right relationship for me, but I was petrified of breaking it off because I was afraid of being embarrassed, all the things that come with potential failure or some idea that you have a failure.
Right.
So when I broke off that engagement, I really was taking a look at my life, and I said, God, what do I want to do? I'd just started coaching, like getting into it, and to be honest, I was about to throw in the life coaching towel because I felt out of integrity because my relationship wasn't working, and even though my clients were having a certain level of success, I knew inside my heart that there was like a piece I was missing. You know what I mean? That there was something that still wasn't crisp in my own life, so it didn't feel quite right for me to be having other people pay me to how to have a great life. Does that make sense?
Right, absolutely.
So when I was about 26 and I broke off the engagement and everything started like kind of rolling along, I said, I really want to dance, but I've never done this before. So the only outlet I had was I was a member at Crunch, ironically, which is, a gym here in New York City. They're also in Atlanta, Miami, Chicago, LA. But I started taking all these hip-hop classes because it was, again, the only thing that I knew. And I said, it sounds like fun. Let me do it. Shortly after, I got asked by my teachers to actually start teaching, and I was petrified. I was like, oh, my God, I've never done this before. Even though I loved it and I had so much fun, it was really a challenge for me to get past that idea that I couldn't do it and just put myself out there and go for it.
Yep.
I got hired, and then shortly after, a producer from MTV took my class and hired me to choreograph for a show for a season. So, of course, that was when everything started shifting because, oddly enough, when I started listening to myself about what I really wanted to do and what I was good at and what I enjoyed, despite the fact that I wasn't trained, for a billion years since I was a baby in ballet shoes, people respond when you're authentic. And, the world responds when you're truthful about what you want and when you just express yourself. And it may not be perfect, and it may not be the most professional that you'll ever be, but people can always spot talent, and they always respond to other people who are passionate. Does that make sense?
Yes, and I do agree that people do spot talent, and it does put out a really positive energy, and there is an attraction there's an attraction force behind all of that. I do think if you're aware of it and you harness it, it gives you, there's so many places you can go with it. It's just like what I feel my skill is with marketing. I enjoyed it so much that I wanted to make a career out of it, although I never had any formal training in marketing.
Yes, and your goal, just like I'm sure was mine, I just wanted to kind of do it and express myself, and I didn't know how I was going to make ends meet, and at that time it was like I was coaching and I had clients, but it wasn't enough to pay my rent every month. So I just hauled ass. I bartended. I did everything that I could just to keep everything going, but it was really out of my love for it and out of fun. And I was always willing to say, hey, I don't know. I don't know how to do this, but I'm willing to learn, when it came up to something. But I wasn't about to listen to my story and my fears about the fact that I really couldn't do it. I figured, I can figure it out. If I'm smart enough to live in this city, and get all this stuff done, I know I can figure it out. So for me, it was just, it keeps coming back to it. It still happens in my life, even with the book or with fitness videos. When they asked me to do the first one, I had never done one before. So I was like, all right, this sounds cool, but, let me just figure it out. So I just trusted myself. I said, let me go get some videos, check this thing out, and, just go for it and be willing to take feedback from people who are more experienced than me, be willing to take coaching, for lack of a better word, from other experts in the field and really implement it as though it's my own, and then keep willing to improve, keep willing to take a look at what I can do better next time. And that has made all the difference in the world for me. For the book, for everything that I do with Nike, I attribute a huge part of why things go so well in my life to my ability to show up as a professional, even though I'm not an expert yet.
You're highly coachable, and so basically is everyone else that I feel is successful, and when I say successful, they're not only successful financially, they're just successful because they're people that you'd want to hang around. It goes back to the being a fountain or a drain. Yeah. They're just people that are encouraging, and they're always wanting to get better because they're coachable. And I mean, in order to be a great coach, I believe you need to be very coachable also, because if you're closed-minded, it doesn't work really well for the delivery to your clients in whatever field that is, and it certainly doesn't lead to most people being very happy running around with that sort of mindset. Well, you mentioned something about story. You said the term your story. What would you say to people that have like a gut feeling and intuition, like you had, obviously with, going into areas that you really just had this feeling to go into, but you never got a degree in it or whatever. So let's say that someone has a gut feeling and intuition that's saying do one thing, and everyone else or every thing that they've learned growing up or whatever is telling them to do something else. What would you say to those people?
I would say they have to go for it. If you have an intuitive hunch, and I think an intuitive hunch is very different than a thought-generated idea. An intuitive hunch feels different. It usually is not loud. It's more of a sense or like an intuitive knowing, like there's information, and I don't know if people can relate to this or if you can get this, but it kind of is just something that exists in your body that you just feel like has to be done or has to be explored. And the thought of not doing it feels wrong in some way. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Where like thought-generated ideas or possibilities are usually those things that, you do pros and con lists and you look at it and, wow, this is really advantageous for me, or this looks like a great moneymaker. I think I should do it. Those are usually not those intuitive hunches. But if someone has a gut feeling that they need to do something, I always encourage people to go for it. Go for it like you're going to win. Go for it like it's absolutely possible and that you're going to explore it. Because in reality, what's the worst thing that can happen? Worst thing that happens is you explore it and then you discover it's either not for you or, oh, this wasn't right, but you discover something else, maybe something tangential that is for you. But if you consistently hang back in your life and aren't willing to give yourself the gift of your full self-expression, you're always going to be torturing your mind with regrets and what ifs. And, 10 or 15 years goes down the line. That's actually what got my butt up to dance, was the thought that in 10 years, am I going to regret not going for it? When I'm in my mid to late 30s, early 40s, am I going to regret not ever having taken the shot at exploring dance? Or, do you know what I mean? Just going for it.
Well, you even said, you started dancing, I believe, at 26 years old, and you've told me before that in the dance world, that's considered, way past your prime.
It is, and it was difficult. I remember crying so many times about that, and it sounds ridiculous, to speak to anyone on the street and to say, yeah, you're old at 26. It's like you want to slap them around. But in that particular world and industry of dance, it is kind of old. And for me, it really was about being willing to take a look. And, I didn't want to go on tour, you know what I mean, and tour with, like, Britney or Justin, or that wasn't my expression of it. I've always been very athletic, and I've always been very physically oriented, and I've always loved fitness. So it was not, I don't even consider it a mistake that around the time that I started was really when, like, dance fitness as a workout form and as an exercise trend was really starting to take off, and people like Nike, and other companies started getting behind it. So, I was just really willing to go for it, but those things didn't quite exist yet. So it was interesting that I put myself in that world, and then stuff started to show up to really support who I was.
Could you talk about the concept of, because you mentioned it not in these words, but this is what I take out of some of what you just said, is the difference of playing to win versus playing not to lose?
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you're playing not to lose, there's going to be a part of you that's holding back or has like a plan B. Like, you're not going to be going full out. You're not going to be expressing yourself to the fullness that you can and really sharing yourself. You're always going to be holding a little piece of it back. And people can sense that, and they don't want to get behind it, whatever it is. Whether it's like a charitable function that you're involved with or a new business you're trying to start up or anything, to be quite honest, even if you're throwing a party, it doesn't really matter.
Well, I mean, even on your book, finding your ideal mate, I mean, it's one of these things to where deep down inside are not coming from the, a confident positioning. There's all kinds of ways that you can just screw it all up completely just with the mindset of playing not to lose.
Yeah, and when you're playing to win, it's more about, I like to think of it as just you're going for it with full engagement. You're going for it with enthusiasm to see what happens. Because to be quite honest, I mean, you can't control life. None of us can. We don't know how the outcomes are going to go. A lot of times, no matter how well you plan, right, or how well you've mapped things out, life is going to throw you a curveball. So if you're going for full engagement and you're going to give it your best, irregardless of what shows up, you're always going to win. There's really not going to be a lose in it for you because there's always going to be some lesson, or you're going to be like, okay, got it, and moving on to the next time with a little bit more of a skill set, a little bit more experience. And if you keep your cool and you're fun to play with, like a fun team player on projects,
right,
those relationships, that's like 90% of how my life has come together is relationships. It's because when I show up on a job or with a project, even if I'm inexperienced at that point, which now I've gained a lot of experience, but I show up willing to play and willing to make things work. So then people are going to want to play with me again, and the wins just keep happening. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And I really believe you're a byproduct of just going out there and going for it, and including when things didn't work, you were able to be aware of what, why, if it didn't fit, just in terms of what you wanted level, or, you just didn't take the correct actions. I mean, you're one of these people that if it doesn't work for you, you at least identify and learn from the lesson. Because, I mean, one of my beliefs is that, you never lose unless you lose the lesson. Because when things don't work out, there's always a wonderful lesson waiting there for you to help propel you forward into, any other area of your life. And a lot of people, they don't take that as a gift. They take it as a frustration, and then they define themselves as total failures and live in that world. That's their story, that nothing works for me. I'm a failure. I can't make anything work. When in reality, life is giving us on a daily basis all this raw data to do whatever we want to do with.
Yeah, and you know what? I love what you just said, and it was all about they have the story that nothing ever works and that I'm a failure. And that is really a story, because this is something I want to touch upon just quickly, and it's about the mind. And our minds are they're thought-generating machines that operate 24/7, 7 days a week, and they're always talking to us. And the voice that we listen to sounds very much like ourselves. Like my little voice in my head calls me Marie when it's being nice, and other times it'll call me stupid, silly, you should have known better. Do you know what I'm talking about with that?
Right, yep.
Yeah. So
because I have a voice that calls me Marie also once in a while.
That's a whole other.
No, I'm totally kidding. Of course, I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah, it's the self-talk.
Absolutely, that's self-talk. But most people mistaken that self-talk for them, rather than just giving themselves the possibility that that's just like a thought-generating machine. It talks to you day and night, and it says the same things that it said the day before, and the day before that, and the day before that. And if you can just notice that, like at the radio station, and we always have a fun, it's like WKRP, because most of the time it's crap.
Right.
You can give because it is, you can give yourself a little grace and have a little compassion to start living out of your possibilities rather than living out of your past. Your past is done. Your mind can only extrapolate from what happened before, but what happened before isn't necessarily what's going to happen again.
Well, my buddy Richard Rossi, who I recently interviewed, he says that, let go of the past. They're just memory strands. I mean, that's really all they are, is memory strands. And what you want to do with it is, what you want to do with it.
Yeah, like this is one of the big things. I mean, people, sometimes when I get new coaching clients are like, oh, how is this going to work? Are we going to work on our problems? And I'm like, screw problems. They don't exist. They really don't. Like, part of what has made my life work so brilliantly on a consistent basis, and it's not like I don't have down days. I absolutely will find myself in a little bit of a stress pot, or, can find myself like, ooh, how did I get here? But I use the same exact tools that I coach other people with to support myself. Do you know what I mean? And I call out for help just as much as I hope my clients call me. If I find myself in a funky place, I don't assume, like, I got my stuff together. I'm like, hey, I need some, let me just get myself out of this. Who can I call? I need a new perspective. But where I was going was, your mind, it's just this place that will keep going back to the past, and it's irrelevant. The only thing that is relevant is this moment, and what are you going to do with it?
Right.
So I train people to be in the moment and live out of their possibilities. It's a learnable skill set. It's just like a language. We've just never been taught it. But thankfully, there's, people like me and a lot of other people out there who have started to discover really not just in theory what it's like to be in the moment, but really how to live out of that place consistently, and it skyrockets your productivity and your well-being. That's why I'm such a big proponent of it.
Yeah, I agree. And me and you have had many discussions about this in books and things that we've read, and also books that are nonsense too. I mean, I know two of your closest friends, Ariel and Cheyenne, I believe.
Ariel and Shia Kane, yeah.
Shia Kane, yeah. They actually, one of their books is "Working on Yourself Doesn't Work," which I think is just a great book title in and of itself.
Yeah, I mean, those guys are awesome, and to be honest, they were the coaches that I found that really supported me, because I had all these tools from my life coach, training. I trained at Coach University, which is, at the time, it was the biggest and largest coach institute in the world for life coaching and business coaching. But when I met the Canes, who are awesome, by the way, I highly recommend Working on Yourself Doesn't Work. You can grab it on Amazon. It really gave me that missing piece I was looking for, which was that you don't have to work on yourself. You don't have to work on the past. You don't have to beat on yourself. You got to get really interested in what's happening now, and everything takes care of itself. And it's kind of an interesting approach, and it's an interesting way to look at things. But if you really take a look, all you ever got is this moment. Like, people have this idea of the future, and, oh, my God, I have to worry about the future and the future of the future. How am I going to plan for it? How am I going to take care of it? But the future never shows up as the future. Like, it doesn't show up and do a song and dance with flashing neon lights and say, hi, I'm your future. It shows up as a moment of now. So if you can get really good at being here and taking care of what's happening in your environment right now, future handles itself, man.
Well, Marie, let me ask you, when I'm talking to you, and this is really true, I always feel like I'm the most important person in the world at, that particular moment in time. So I wanted to ask you if you could give me and the listeners some tips on how to be a really good listener in the truest sense, because you are, in my opinion, in my experience, just a phenomenal listener.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'll tell you, it is probably one of the most important skill sets for anybody to have, especially in business, but also in your personal life as well. It's made such a huge difference for me. Here's the thing. Most of us, we think we're good listeners, but we're really not. Rather than listening, what we're doing is we're waiting for our turn to talk. We're listening to that conversation in our mind, and usually it's either disagreeing or agreeing with what the speaker is saying. So here's what you do. I like to use an analogy. It's a baseball mitt analogy. So, you got a baseball mitt, right?
Uh-huh.
Baseball mitt, someone throws you a ball, and you catch it, and you have a ball in that mitt. If someone were to throw you another ball, and you already had a ball in your mitt, you know how you kind of squeeze your hand and you try to catch it? Maybe you could grasp it, but most likely it just fall out and hit the floor.
Right.
Yeah?
Uh-huh.
That's how most people listen. Most people are so engaged in listening to their own conversation in their own head that they can't actually catch what another person has to say. So here's the key. What you have to do is you need to drop the conversation that's in your mind, and you need to put your full attention on listening to what the speaker has to say from their perspective. So that's big. It's not about agreeing or disagreeing with what they're saying, or saying, oh, I know that already, or that sounds like something I read in this self-help book. It's really about paying attention and hearing what they have to say as though you have no baseball in your mitt and you need to catch the communication. Does that make sense? So your only job is to really receive it. You don't need to do anything with it. You don't need to analyze it. You don't need to come back with something smarter or wittier to say, which I know you love. So here's the key. See, this is where people usually get tripped up. It's because they have an idea that there are more important conversations than less. Here's how you develop the skill of being an amazing listener all the time. You got to do it in a moment-to-moment way. We've joked about this a lot because and we had a conversation about this not too long ago about not multitasking, and about how I'm a big proponent of not multitasking, how if you're sending an email, that you need to just send that email and not have a phone on your ear or trying to be doing 5 other things at once. The reality is you can only be doing one thing at one moment in time. If you had 2 phones on your ear, which I've had at times, I miss out on both conversations. I need to say, hang on, and then go listen to the other person and need to come back. So in every moment, you can only be doing one thing. So you need to start training yourself to do that. And I know it's so hard these days with BlackBerries and email. You get a call, and then all of a sudden your computer little email lights up, and there's that temptation to go click on the screen to see if some life-changing email popped into your email box. Do you know that thought?
Right. The life-changing email has arrived.
Yeah, because we all think that it's coming. And every time we hit send and receive, it's like, oh, is this the one? It's like, what the hell are we thinking? Anyway, I digress. So what you got to do is if you're having a conversation, even if it's about what the hell to have for dinner, just let yourself have that conversation about what to have for dinner. If you practice in the small moments, which means your whole life, your whole day, when it comes to that really important conversation, you're going to be able to let yourself really be there and engage with that person. Here's the other trick. You got to go with your eyes and your ears, meaning when someone's talking to you, especially when you're in person, make sure your eyes are with them and your ears are with them. It's easy sometimes when someone walks behind them or, you know what I mean, things kind of pull on your attention. Not a big deal, but keep bringing yourself back to just listening to what that person is saying. That's going to automatically strengthen your ability to listen, and it's going to happen naturally and pretty much without effort. It's not going to be hard. It just takes awareness. When you notice that you've drifted away, just bring yourself back. That's it. Don't beat on yourself for it. Don't talk to yourself like, damn, I did it again. I'm such a bad listener. That's all detracting from your ability to be a great listener. So you just got to shift your attention right back. But really, if you focus in the small ways, the big things will take care of themselves.
Say that you're engaged in a conversation and you're listening. You're really connected to the conversation, and you realize early on that this is going down a road I don't want to go down, or this is a project I really, is not a fit for me, or this person is, a difficult person. There's the books on how to deal with difficult people and things like that. I mean, what are some ways to just quickly disengage? Because what I don't want to have happen is our listeners to us going out and then paying really close attention to people that really is not going to add any value to their lives, and being able to, decipher between great opportunities, great people, relevance to their life versus the irrelevant things.
Right. That's a great question. Here's what I suggest. Again, it comes back to you got to start being willing to pay attention to how you feel and be willing to be direct and respectful in the moment. And I'll give you an example. Say you meet someone at a conference and they're like, hey, Joe, I got this great opportunity for you. I know for a fact, Joe, that instantly there's a register in you that's either opening or it's contracting. In that moment, if you could say, hey, you know what? I really got to be honest with you. My plate is full at this moment. I appreciate, the fact that you want to come with me with this, but I'm not interested at this time. It's nothing personal. It's not the right fit for me. Rather than letting yourself, listen to the whole thing and then feel bad and have to do follow-up emails, and it's just a big waste of everyone's time. That's a skill set in and of itself, because most of us want to be liked so much that it's hard for us to say no in the moment or to just be direct and truthful.
Right, and it is, I've gone to enormous lengths to better my abilities to say no, because a lot of times I will say yes or take on an obligation, and as I'm doing it, not even aware that I just said yes to something. I mean, even a nice gesture with somebody in your mind could be, we'll look at it later. In their minds, it could be, oh, we're going to do a business deal together or whatever. Yes,
and that comes down to, again, and for me it's been huge, because people will start coming to me now or asking for things, and it comes down to being willing to slow down enough and to not get ahead of yourself and to be in such a frantic pace in your life that you're able to really be there and check. And I know it sounds silly. This is one of the things that's been such a huge help in my life. We have the illusion that if we go faster and we talk faster and we get more done, that we're being more productive. In reality, most of us need to slow down 5 to 10% at least. And when I say slow down 5 to 10%, I mean slow down in our mental processes and really give yourself an opportunity to be here, wherever here is. Because I know for you, Joe, you'll probably meet someone, and because you're so productive and you're so talented and you're such a great entrepreneur, you may be ahead of yourself often. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah, I agree. And I think what you're saying is really profound, too, because if you are going too fast, you're not listening, and you're not able to filter or even evaluate at the level that you could, which is really the place that I think it's best for myself and for everyone to be at, because this goes back to multitasking. Just going too fast is this another version of multitasking?
Yeah, it's like there's some saying out there that people confuse motion with forward motion, and I didn't get that absolutely correct, but it's like, the idea of a rocking chair, it goes really fast, but it ain't going anywhere. And that's how most people operate in their lives, and it is counterintuitive. It's not logical that if you slow down that you'll actually speed up, but that's how it works. When you give yourself a little bit of a break and allow yourself to just be here and listen to someone, you know in nanoseconds whether or not it's a no or a yes. And you're able to respond much more tactfully, much more respectfully, and there's a connection there. It's not just like, no, I don't have time for you, get out of my face. It's like, you know what, I really need to be clear with you. You know, this is probably not a good fit. Thank you so much. And right there, within, 4 or 5 seconds, you've maintained that relationship, and you've freed yourself from something that's going to be a nightmare and cost you a ton of time and energy in the next month.
You know, well, let me ask you, because this is kind of on this subject. I mean, we've talked a bit about intuition. However, I'd like you to elaborate on it and, you know, give me your thoughts on how to make decisions when things feel off. I mean, you just kind of mentioned it. You know, you just kind of know in nanoseconds that it's either right or it's not right. I mean, how do you make decisions when your gut feeling is saying, it's just, logically I can't explain it, but I'm feeling that this is not the right person or the right situation for me?
That comes down to just taking a look, and I love that you use the word decide, because it's one of those things I've learned. You know, the root word side, it's like homicide, genocide, to kill off. It means you're killing off a decision. And when you get here and you get really practiced at being in the moment and living directly, again, and I'm not taking that from like an you got to sit on some rock somewhere and meditate. I'm talking about in a really practical, pragmatic way that you get practiced at being in your life rather than being in your thoughts. Choices are like become obvious. Like what you're talking about when you have that gut reaction, like, I don't know why. There's no information or no proof or evidence to substantiate the reason why I don't want to go ahead with this, because sometimes on paper it's like, you know, it looks all glossy, there's a lot of money, yay, but something in your heart is telling you this is not a good idea. If you just give yourself, I always use this catchphrase, it's like, you know what, this just isn't the right fit for me right now. And if people pressure you for why, you can say, you know, I can't explain it, it's nothing personal, but I just need to pass on this. And you leave it at that. People can't really argue with it. And you're saying your truth, so it's not like you're lying or you're being dishonest, but you gotta trust that little inner voice or those little hunches that you have when it comes to people and opportunities. I've learned that intuition, that's like my natural knowing, that's my connection to, again, not to get too esoteric, but I feel like there's a greater intelligence, you know, like there's a creativity, there's a life force that's out there that knows a lot. There's a lot of information, and my intuition is a direct link to that. And when I override that, I always get myself in trouble, always.
Yeah, and same here. Anytime I go against my gut feelings, it literally, I don't think I've ever had a situation where it's not ended up in a bad situation, where I'm just like, there's a side of me that just doesn't feel right, and I override it anyway because of money or supposed opportunities or whatever. It's a karmic thing. I mean, if it doesn't feel right, it's probably not going to feel better if you go deeper into it.
Absolutely. And see, that's the thing. Most people, and I know I've touched on this before, but, you know, we think we're our minds. Our minds take over as though, like, they're us, and that's all that we are. And we forget that we have this whole other sense, like this intuitive knowing that's as much of us as our mind and our body is. You know, again, it's like a mind, body, soul thing, and whatever you want to call it, your being. That part of you is really intelligent, and it knows things without having had prior proof. Do you ever notice that? Like, you can meet someone, and you get like a whole picture of them, or you get a sense of them, and you never met them before, but you know that you can do business with them, or you know that you're going to do a project together somewhere down the line.
Right.
And on the flip side, you'll also meet people, and they can look all, you know, well put together, and they say all the right things, but something in you is just like, this is just not right for me. You need to trust those things, and don't question it. You don't have to analyze it. Who cares why? I always consider it like electricity. I don't know how the hell electricity works, but I know I flip the switch and light comes on.
Right.
When it comes to my intuition, you know, like, I can't explain it. If someone asks me to, I can't tell you how it works, but I know it works, so I use it.
Well, no, I mean, this is such an important subject for me, and I mean, it's so interesting to me because I think there's a lot to be said about chemistry and about intuition. And so, well, let me ask you the flip side. I mean, so if something feels right And like you mentioned, you can't explain why it feels good or it doesn't. It just, let's say something does feel right, such as, chemistry when you've met the love of your life or a person you're really interested in or a project that really excites you. What do you do with that feeling? Although, say you can't even put into words why you feel you should go in this direction, kind of like you did with your dance. What do you do with when, like the universe, I guess, or whatever, gives you that feeling? What do you do with it?
Enjoy it, man. That's the great stuff. You don't have to do anything with it. If you meet someone, let's use some examples. So say you meet someone, whether it's you've had coffee, you bumped into them at a social event, or it's at some kind of seminar or, a continuing education event. It's like, wow, I really like that person. All you need to do is just keep in touch and let them know. It's just say, hey, I thought you were great, or, if it's some kind of professional contact, say if there's anything I can do for you, let's definitely keep in touch. It should keep that relationship going. If there's someone and it's on a more personal, intimate level, you meet someone, you're like, wow, they're great, I really want to hang out more. Hang out more. It's not rocket science. You don't have to necessarily do anything but follow what your intuition is telling you to do.
Yeah, and I mean, you're a perfect example of a person that has done exactly that, which is, the main reason why I wanted to talk about the flip side of this too, because really you have had a lot of the MO of how most people go into careers and things. You've, followed your gut. You followed your intuition. You didn't do the things that, probably your parents wanted you to do when you grew up. You did what you want to do, and you're not only making a fantastic living as a result of it, but you're having a heck of a lot of fun, and you're encouraging a boatload of people.
Yeah, it's really good. And I do have to say, though, my parents, they're amazing, and they're actually, I feel quite lucky with them, too, because they were...
Oh, come on. I was hoping that you'd have some miserable childhood growing up or whatever.
No.
And then...
I'll tell you, I was a little brat when I got to be like 13, 14 and hit puberty and was boy crazy. I can't even believe they put up with me. I was nuts.
Really?
But, of course. I was in New Jersey on the shore with tons of Italian guys with their shirts off, and I was boy crazy. Anyway, it's a whole other story. But that was my life. But they, worked their butts off to send me to Seton Hall, which was a Catholic school, which, of course, any parents out there or anyone who has awareness around what college costs these days, wasn't cheap. And I was on Wall Street doing great, and I was like, all right, I'm going to leave and go dance and do art. They were actually really supportive. They were like, you know what? My dad was he's such an inspiration to me. He's like, Marie, as long as you are happy, that's all we care about is if you're happy. It was when things started coming together. My parents, even now, they're like, how the hell do you keep the schedule you do? Where'd you come from? They're not our kid. They're really sweet.
No, and that's wonderful. And I'm very glad to hear that. So you get a ton of stuff done, and you also talked about listening and being present. I mean, how do you maintain productivity? How do you maintain great health? Because you are absolutely in phenomenal shape. You are a great dancer. You're more than great. I mean, not that I'm any dance expert by any stretch of the imagination, but watching you dance is like it's artistic. And I'll probably try to embarrass you and ask you to dance at the boot camp this year or something. But nonetheless, recommendations for productivity and just, fitting in the important stuff and making it work.
Okay, couple things. The one is it's a law in physics that no two things can occupy the same space at the same time. So I use this myself all the time. I used it this morning, actually. When you are thinking about all you have to get done, in that moment, you're actually not getting anything done. Despite your mind, some of our minds, we equate worrying about stuff or planning stuff in our head with productivity, and it's simply not true. It's just a waste. It wastes your well-being, and it wastes your time. If you notice that you're lost in overwhelm or thinking about all you have to do, simply shift into engaging into that one phone call or get that email done. You know what I mean? Anything on your quote-unquote to-do list that's in front of you, engage in it. The time it takes to think about sending an email and the time it takes to actually send an email, I'll tell you, most people waste so much time up in their head thinking about everything that needs to get done rather than actually doing it. So that's my biggest thing. Just remember, no two things can occupy the same space at the same time. You're either thinking about all you got to do or you're actually producing stuff.
Right.
Second thing is it okay if I give you more?
No, you need to stop right now. No. Please, continue.
The other thing is you really gotta have fun. I mean, you don't have to, it's just a big recommendation. Like, you can trot through all the stuff you have to do, or you can actually enjoy it. You know, and sometimes it's calling up technical people to help you because, you know, something's broke on your computer. You know, like things aren't really going your way.
Well, I just try to make fun of these people along the way as I do it and goof with them because, and not in a mean way. I mean, I'm being deadly serious. I mean, when I have to do things like that, I try to take, you know, I try to make the most out of it in a situation and make people laugh and have it be as fun as humanly possible.
Yeah, but a lot of people don't do that. They're complaining about it as though it could be different. And in that moment, it can't be any different, so you might as well enjoy it. So that honestly helps me get a lot done, and it really supports people in supporting me to get things done. I'm much more likely to get great service. I'm much more likely to have people help me when I get in a bind. So it's about the approach. But those two things, and you got to take time off. I know this is huge because I'm one of those people who is driven to produce. I have fun doing it. So of course I'm like every entrepreneur naturally wants to work, you know, 27 hours a day. You know, it's like, why can't I have more time to make more stuff? But you need to recharge your battery, and not like quasi-recharge your battery where you're still hooked up and you're connected to the cell phone and the internet. And, you know, I was talking to you earlier. I went away this weekend and there was no internet access and pretty shoddy cell service. And for 3 days I was totally, you know, chilling.
No, that's awesome. You know, I didn't ask you. I don't think I've asked you anything about complaining, have I?
No, I don't think we talked about that yet.
Well, let's talk about it. I mean, you are one of those people that, for whatever bizarre reason, rarely complain or whine, like I do at times, or like many people. And it's you know, it's one of the things that makes you such an energy charger. So if you could maybe share some tips with me, with my listeners, on, you know, how to maintain a non-complaining attitude, and, you know, how they can do the same for themselves.
Yeah, it's absolutely, I'll tell you, it's so cool if you start to pay attention. One of the first things I do when I start working with clients one-on-one is I tell them to start paying attention to your thoughts. Just start listening like you're an observer, like you're an outside person, an anthropologist, just taking notes on what your thoughts are. Fascinating stuff. Again, you don't have to do anything with it. It's not about doing or changing or like disciplining yourself. I hate that stuff. Never works. You got to pay attention. And if you notice, it's really funny. It's like a comedy show up there. You'll complain about everything. You'll complain that you ordered the wrong thing at the restaurant. You complain when it's cloudy out. Do you ever know, oh, this is the best one. I do this. My mind does this all the time. You know, and it's like really like cloudy and kind of crappy in New York, and it's winter time and it's cold and stuff. I'm like, oh, can't wait for the summer. Yeah, this weather sucks, blah, 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 blah. And then summer comes around, and I can hear myself start complaining about how it's too hot. Now it's too humid. You know, when are we going to get some cool days? And if you pay attention to what your own mind says, you'll catch it complaining like 75%, 80% of the time about irrelevant stuff. And if you can just notice it and have a sense of humor with yourself, you will stop. Literally, you will stop. All you got to do is be willing to see it and notice when you do it. For me, it's become like a bicep muscle. All this stuff, like everything we've talked about, they're all skill sets and they're all learnable. Just like when you go to the gym, if you wanted to build a strong bicep muscle, that's why I love the fact that I am engaged in fitness, because I find that there's so many parallels between building a strong physical body and building a strong sense of well-being. They're both learnable. Anybody can do it, and it's a matter of consistency. And when you notice you're complaining, if you just notice you're complaining and not do it, like you just disengage from it, it will stop. As a habitual and robotic way of being, it will cease to exist.
And like many things, it's a learned process, and the more you practice it, the better you will get, and probably the more freer your mind will become. Because when you're in a constant state of complaining, you're typically in a constant negative state, and you tend to surround yourself with other people that like to bitch and whine and complain about everything. And you know, the unfortunate thing is that is a huge percentage of the population.
Yeah, you know what's unfortunate, but that it's like no one knows that there's another possibility. I know before. Do you know what I mean? It's
yeah.
Like no one said, like, hey, here's another whole way to be. Not see, this is the thing and I just want to make this point. It's not about being a super positive, happy person like someone jacked you up on Prozac or something. It's not about that. It's about being real, and it's about looking at reality and being willing to engage with it as it is. Because, you know, life shows up as it does, and you can either engage with it like it's supposed to be there, or you can bitch and moan about it like it should be different. Your life, the quality of your life, is what hangs in the balance. You know what I mean? And sometimes things are unfortunate, and things do kind of suck, and you can say, okay, yeah, that was, all right, that's a bummer. You know, that's a disappointment, and you can register that. But are you going to stay there, or are you just going to get right back on the horse and say, okay, what's next?
To go a little bit deeper on that, I mean, when someone has a big negative issue, because I know in your coaching work that you deal with really traumatic situations at times. People come to you with real messes, and they're in bad places. I mean, what recommendations to, you know, I mean, yeah, when bad things happen, you know, there are mourning stages, there are cleanups that need to be done. However, you know, the point is to not define yourself and your life as being horrible when horrible things happen.
Yes, and what you said before is a huge piece of that. It's about how you approach it, because let's face it, all of us are going to have disappointments. We've all had them, and we'll have many more. That's life. You know what I mean? That's how it works. Things don't show up the way that we expect, and how you deal with it makes all the difference in the world. Like, when you have disappointments, you got to let yourself feel it. You know, you can't pretend that everything's rosy, or you're, you know, running around skipping, throwing daisies and like, that didn't affect me at all, I'm fine. That's being unreal. That's being over top of yourself, and that's really going to store up some energy and some negative emotions that'll come back and bite you in the butt later. When you have disappointments, which we all will, if you just let yourself feel it, like viscerally feel it. You know, like when it's hot outside, you feel that it's hot, like you can feel the heat. Just like when it's cold, you can physically feel the heat. Right. Emotions are very similar, and if you can let yourself feel it, if there's tears that come along with it, or there's a little sadness that comes along with it, who cares? It's fine. Just let yourself experience that emotion, and if you don't resist it, it will pass. If you take a look and tell the truth, happiness doesn't last because you don't resist it. It's like, oh, wow, you're feeling really joyful, and you know what I mean? And then it kind of flows on. And in my experience, like, human beings, we're on a roller coaster of experiencing emotion. And you can have well-being as a through line if you don't take things so personally. You just let yourself feel it, and it will move on. It's when you press up against things and you don't like things and you wish they were different is when you stick them in place.
Yep, makes total sense. The whole what you resist persists sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so cool, because if you take a look at your life, it's like, don't take my word for it. Take a look. People make New Year's resolutions every year. How long do they last? Maybe a week. Do you know what I mean? There's something about themselves that they're saying they don't like and they want to change, and I guarantee they make those same resolutions, typically about weight, every year, or it's about money. I'm going to tell you something that I've only told like a couple of people this, but I thought it was really cool. A couple of years ago, I remember, you know, I'm obviously into self-help in some, because I'm doing life coaching, and I've read and done a ton of seminars very similar to you. You know, I've investigated a lot of different approaches, and that's why I'm so clear on what works, at least for me. You know, I don't claim that this is going to work for everybody, because I feel like everyone needs to find their own path, and you need to kind of align yourself with what resonates for you and what you feel works. And everything that I talk about works because I use it every day. It's not like I ever recommend ideas or suggestions or tips that I've just read and said, hey, that sounds good, why don't you try it? You know, it's something that really physically helps me have a great life.
Right.
And what I noticed, I remember years ago when I was bartending and really working my butt off to make it all happen, but having enough money on a month-to-month basis, it wasn't always easy. Now, I never starved, and I mean, come on, I live in Manhattan, one of the most expensive places in the world, so I'm not crying like I was in poverty, but I always wanted to have more money. Funny, because I was reading a lot of how to make more money books. My lovely, amazing, wonderful partner, boyfriend, Josh, he made a suggestion to me, and he said, Marie, he goes, you have so much income potential in you, but you spend so much time in these books that are reinforcing your story that you don't know how to make money. He goes, you need to put them away. I want them all off our bookshelf. Get them out of there. And I was like, totally warred with my idea that I need to work on myself and learn how to make more money, because obviously I wasn't doing it, right?
Right.
So funny. I followed his suggestion and took his coaching because I trust him and he's brilliant. Funny thing happened. Within like a month or two, I was getting more work than I can't even tell you. Like for the videos, my rate went up, just job offers, things, like stuff coming out of nowhere that I was like, like basically doubling my income without even doing any scheme, any technique, anything, with basically leaving myself alone and just engaging more in my life.
Why do you think that is?
because I was resisting. There was something about me, which I had a thought, that I didn't know how to make more money. That was what the story I was hanging on to. Being the coachable girl that I am, and having, thankfully, a really smart boyfriend who could see what I was doing and was willing to point it out, and I was willing to take his coaching, I stopped resisting that part in myself, or stopped adding energy to that story that I need to make more money, and it handled itself.
And that's a great point too. And let me give you my thoughts on that and what you're saying also, and about in 2 minutes if I can accomplish that. I actually my whole model that I use to filter what I get involved in and what I don't, I put through ELF, because I teach ELF marketing, which is I say that you can do things that are easy, lucrative, and fun, or you can do things that are hard, annoying, lame, and frustrating. You can have an ELF business, an ELF life, or you can have a half business or a half life. And, it could be hard, annoying, lucrative, and frustrating, but I try to follow ELF. And I actually registered a website. I got an idea from a guy named Leighton Cougar, who actually has a nonprofit facility in New Mexico that takes wolves that people try to make as pets or abandon them or whatever, and he just helps that whole animal population. It's very interesting, but he gave me this term called elf-made millionaire, not self-made millionaire, but elf-made millionaire, and which I registered as a website, which I'm probably going to do something with, because I have a lot of my clients that have become millionaires using ELF principles, and so I'm more into ELF help than necessarily self-help.
I love it.
Yeah, and so I think about, okay, ELF help. When I'm reading self-help stuff, when I'm going to seminars, what is it that I'm really looking for? Because the truth is, you can spend so much time reading books, going to seminars, and thinking and convincing yourself that you're actually accomplishing something, when all you're doing is you're giving yourself an excuse to stall taking action. So my statement earlier in the interview about I have a love-hate relationship with the self-help business, what I mean by that is, I very much admire and respect anyone that is able to write a book, document their successes, put it out there to the world, and try to do something that's better. And, there's a huge percentage of the population that criticizes people that want to improve themselves or go to seminars or read books or whatever. And for me, they've helped me tremendously. I mean, so much of it has helped me, and a lot of it has been an absolute waste of time, and a lot of it, the way that I've used it, or some of it just being simply bad information, hasn't helped me. It's actually set me off in absolutely ridiculous directions, has cost me money, has wasted time. So, there's a whole field out there. I mean, based on what you said, I mean, it's like, what works for you? Go deep with it. Do a check on yourself. Is this working for me? Does this feel right? Is it producing results? And just, don't get yourself hung up on a tree of because you're absolutely right. I see some people that read every frickin' book on the planet on how to make money, that go to all the seminars, and they never frickin' do anything. And then there's other people, they go to these seminars, they go because they want direction, they want confidence, they want capabilities, which is absolutely what I would hope from every core of my body. I try to deliver things that genuinely, I believe, if people follow the advice of the listeners, people like you, if they use any of my tools, if they come to my seminars, that if they use it, it's going to give them a real reasonable chance of having success with these materials. And I do everything I can to keep away bad information that I deem as bad information from the people that I associate with, because I believe the most expensive information in the world is bad information, and there's a ton of bad information out there. So I don't, the self-help business is not good or bad. It's just there's parts of it that are good, there's parts of it that are bad, and there's a whole bunch of people out there that will do nothing with it, and there's a small percentage that will do a lot with it and have significant shifts, and those are the people obviously that I want to reach as much as I'm capable of. So that's
I say something. I'm interrupting you, and I totally know it, but I have to say this, is that when it comes to marketing, a couple years ago when I was really into, had the idea that I wanted to make Every Man Want You just an ebook, and I'm sure your listeners and you are fully aware that there's just this whole kind of sub-industry of selling digital products on the internet, and getting traffic and all that stuff, which is awesome, and some people really do it well. Can I tell you that your marketing advice First of all, I use it and implement it. I use it as there's so much that I've learned from you that I've taken and tailored to what I do, and it may not come out exactly, you know what I mean, because I'm not in the carpet cleaning industry, but I'll use it and I'll tweak it in some form for all of my projects. And yours is the only marketing that Josh is like, as long as you're looking at Joe's marketing, because I come away from your advice feeling alive. There's sometimes when I've looked at other people's sites, and this is not just to blow smoke up your butt, this is honestly the truth, and this is why I love partnering with you and working with you and why I'm so excited to be at boot camp, because I so believe in what you have to offer, and it's really supported me in my business and everything that I do, is that what you share, I've paid attention to. There's other sites, and it's irrelevant who they are, but I've gone on other people's, marketing how-to things, and I really leave feeling fearful. Like, if I don't get that product, oh my God, I'm never going to make it. Oh my God, I need to go spend like $1,000 right now. When I'm on yours, do you know that fearful thing that happens? You get sucked into a marketing letter, and it's like 20 minutes later, and your credit card's out, and you're like, holy shit, I need to get this now.
Absolutely. No, I totally know what you're saying.
But with your stuff, that's why I'm so excited about this, and your boot camp is amazing because the stuff works, and it is about ELF. That's why I love it. It's like the ELF help idea. I think that is absolutely brilliant. That's what's made such a huge difference for me. It's like taking a look at what works and having it be fun. Like whenever I do coaching stuff or even teaching stuff, dancing things, it's like, if it ain't fun, why are you doing it? Not worth it.
Exactly.
Sure.
I mean, I even have a thing, a tool that we use for our coaching group called a fun list, where you just literally list everything that's fun. Because frankly, I mean, I'm real big on making money. I mean, I like making money, and I teach my clients that within the context of I want to have enough money so that I no longer have problems that money can't solve, because there's, other issues in life other than money, and money used in the right context is wonderful. I mean, I've referred to money as fun tickets. I mean, again, though, you got to take it in the right context. You can absolutely imprison yourself in this pursuit of, whatever, if you're not clear on, what it is that you want to do. And I can't imagine, going to work every day doing something that I absolutely hate and despise just because I need to, make money. So I think looking at everything that we've talked about so far, for one, awareness is step number one. Get awareness of what it is you want, what you want to do, and then take all of the knowledge and the capabilities that you spoke about to help enhance your getting there. And part of, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, part of getting there is not putting yourself in this mindset that I have to have it, I got to do it, and resisting so many things. A lot of it is just opening yourself up, slowing down a little bit, and just paying attention, because the signposts are everywhere if you're simply willing to allow yourself to notice them. They're all over the place, and they're saying, go here, go here. I mean, nature has a wonderful way. I do believe it's a higher power that guides us into areas that are good for us, and it shows us warning signs of areas that aren't. If you're not open to that, though, and you're so mired in busyness and overwhelming stuff, you're just simply not going to notice all the wonderful things that are literally right in front of you. I mean, I do believe in the acres of diamonds story, that it's all very close to us. It's all right there if we simply arrange our life and our affairs so that we can take advantage of it.
Yeah, and here's the kicker. There's nowhere to get to. That was the biggest thing. Everyone is so caught up trying to get where they think they should be. Like, oh, man, I should be there by now. My business should be doing this by now. My career should be at this point by now. I should be on the cover of blah, blah, blah by now. That is such a load of crap and such a waste of time, and it so kills that aliveness that's inside you. When we started this call, I was talking just briefly about that you're here to make a difference, that you're one in 6.5, roughly, billion human beings on the planet, and everyone's like a snowflake. There's a reason that you're here. And that's the key. It's like there's nowhere to get to. There's really it's an illusion. Getting somewhere is an illusion. If you can get here, life gets real easy.
Well, look, we could obviously talk for weeks on this stuff, and it's always a joy, and it's interesting, and it's fun, and it's always mind-expanding for me to have conversations with you, and I'm very happy that we were able to do this Genius Network, and I'm completely ecstatic that you're going to come to this year's boot camp, because anyone that has an opportunity to meet you, I mean, every single person, I cannot think of one person that I've not introduced to you that has not come back and saying, that is an amazing person. I really, everyone here in my office that's met you just thinks you're fabulous. And, we've hung out, several times, for, several hours at a time, and have had really great conversations and a lot of fun. And I know that, introducing you to all of the people that are coming to the boot camp this year is just, I think it's really going to make a significant impact with a lot of people. And what are you going to talk about and chat about at my boot camp this year? Because, I'm going to give you carte blanche to do whatever you want to do there, because I know anything that you'll share will be interesting. If you could maybe give like a trailer of some of the things you're going to talk about, that would be cool.
Absolutely. I can't wait, by the way. I'm going to give people really easy, tangible, use right now tools that'll support them and building their business without more time and effort, because it's really not about more time and effort. It's got to be easy and it's got to be fun. So I'm going to share the number one thing, my number one secret to getting more done without more time and effort. And also, this is the really important thing. I want to give people the secret to building their business and making more money without sacrificing the quality of their relationships with their family and loved ones. Because you said it just before. It's like you can't be on this crazy rat race for nothing. Life is too short, and there's a way to have it all. And people will say that it's not, and you got to be a crazy person and work all kinds of hours, and it's simply not true. It does not to say that it doesn't require effort and it doesn't require engaging and a little bit of elbow grease, but it does not mean that you need to sacrifice time with your husband or your wife or with your kids. And there's a way to have it all, and I want to give people the tools so they can have that.
Any final last words that you'd like to have? I could ask you more questions, but I'm not going to. I mean, there's plenty more we can talk about, and if my listeners give me feedback that they absolutely love this interview, then I'll ask you to do a second one in the future. Give any famous last words that you have, famous or infamous, and contact info so that people can check you out, because you're one of the few people I know that has becoming even more very famous that doesn't appear to have really tried. It's just coming and finding you because of the way you've structured your affairs. I mean, you're like a great PR person that has gotten there just based on being real clear with what you want and positioning yourself in ways to where all these opportunities find you. So anything else you want to say, and then please give out your contact information so that all our listeners can check you out.
Absolutely. The biggest thing is just for people to be gentle with themselves and to get really engaged in being here in your life, wherever here is. So when you're driving, get your hands on the wheel. Don't think and drive. You know what I mean? Just be here wherever you are, and you're going to notice really big shifts in your life, sincerely, from a place where you're like, wow, it can really be this easy. Just pay attention. When you're with your wife or your kids, give them your full attention. Let the business be for when it's done, let it be, and when you're in there, be there fully. And if you want more information or you want to learn about the book or the videos or you just have questions, they can go to marieforleo.com, MarieForleo. Or you can go on your Joe Polish Recommends, right? And there's a link.
Yeah, you're listed right there, joepolishrecommends.com.
Absolutely.
Well, Marie, as usual, it's always a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much for taking the time and sharing some of your thoughts and ideas. I really appreciate it, and I got a lot out of it, as I always do when I speak with you, and I hope the same for our listeners. And I really, really, really look forward to having you speak at the boot camp this year. It is going to be awesome. So I want
we're going to rock it. It's going to be great. I can't wait.
Should everyone bring their dance clothes and stuff?
I'm going to get them up and moving. You can't have me come and speak and think it's just going to be some lecture thing. It's going to be rocking, trust me.
Okay, good. Excellent. Well, so to my listeners, give me your feedback. If what you liked about this interview, and if you'd like me to interview Marie in the future, I will certainly do so. Marie, you have a wonderful day. Tell my listeners, have a wonderful day. Go ahead and take what Marie had to say and make some cool stuff happen. So take care, Marie, and I'll see you at the boot camp.
See you at boot camp. Bye.
Hello, this is Joe Polish. I want to thank you for taking the time to listen to this interview. I hope you found it very useful. Please give me your feedback on all of the interviews that you listen to. I'd love to hear your feedback so we can always deliver a great program for you. Our website is www.joepolish.com, and we also have a Joe Polish Recommends section, so you can take a lot of the ideas and concepts that you hear on my Genius Network interview series and apply them to your business and find vendors and resources. You can go to joepolish.com to find that information and click on the Joe Polish Recommends section. And also, if you would like to find out about more interviews and invest in more useful Genius Network series interviews, go to www.geniusnetwork.com. Thanks, and eat your competition alive.